Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we are so thrilled, so excited to get to talk about the film Honeyjoon. Lots to share about it. We'll get into that in a second. To give you the backstory of why we get to talk, why we're extra excited to talk about this movie today. But first, Sarah, do you want to give us an IMDb summary for Honeyjoon?
Sure. Persian Leela and her sensual daughter June take a trip to the romantic Azores after loss with opposite ideas about how to grieve, how to live, and tiny bikinis. A hot philosophical guide helps them find each other, coming back to life.
So good. So good. You can tell from the IMDb summary that this film has so much atmosphere, and you are correct. I love that IMDb summary. It does the film justice to capture the atmosphere of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, before we do our one sentence summaries and all that goodness, let's share a little bit about why we're so excited to talk about Honeyjoon today.
Yes, we are very excited to dive into this film, not only because we both loved it, which, spoiler, we did, but in a few days, you will actually be able to hear our conversation with the director of this film. And so it was just so wonderful to be able to sit down with Lillian and just hear more about, her what like how she goes about directing,
Yeah.
kind of her own passion for art and for this medium, but then also diving into Honeyjoon and so many of the decisions that she made, her heart behind this film, and getting to even dive into some of the little details about it. So yeah, here in the feed in a few days, you will be
Yay!
able to hear our conversation with her. But before we get to that, we just wanted to have this space to just talk about this film and just kind
Yeah.
of gush about it for a little bit because we both loved it.
Yeah, actually a fun backstory of why we're doing this episode is that we had an amazing interview with Lillian. She her heart for filmmaking and creating stories that move people, that bring people back to themselves again, is so genuine and so authentic, and it's absolutely contagious. And I think that was one of the big things that I left with is she just loves to create films that impact and move people and make them feel alive again to all of the parts of themselves, good, bad, ugly, messy, all of it. And that was so palpably felt. So we did this amazing interview, and then we just felt like, gosh, we need more time to talk about Honeyjoon. We need to dive into that shot, that camera movement, the specific story choice. So honestly, yeah, we're here to talk about Honeydew, to really dive into the different parts of the film, and then you'll get to hear that full interview with Lillian soon. And it was incredible to hear her heart and her backstory for creating the film and how she fell in love with the film as well. So all that's to say is we're going to talk about this film. We are actually not going to spoil this movie at all, so there will be no spoiler alert. That's just hopefully incentive for you to actually go watch this film. I want to share a little bit about the film and kind of the attention and momentum it's already getting. It debuted at Tribeca in June. And it was the winner of the AT&T Untold Stories Award, which essentially is, I got to read a little bit more about it. It's really fascinating. It was created to help fund and give the resources to filmmakers that are looking for resources and opportunities to bring their stories to life. And it's a competitive pitch process. There's 5 finalists selected, and then they ultimately go in, pitch their stories, and then an hour later, they find out who gets to make their film. And so Lillian was able to receive this generous award and go and make this movie in the Azores with this incredible team. And so we're excited to dive into this film. But it's just really neat to see almost something that we talk a lot about here on the podcast, which is how do we create opportunities for the stories of independent visionary artists and bring them to life. And so it's neat to hear a little about kind of her backstory of getting that opportunity. And Honeyjoon is gaining lots of great momentum throughout the film festivals. So we're excited to see this star rise. Okay, well, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna like tack on to that. Like it
Yeah,
has gotten really great reception at film festivals. It's won
yeah,
audience awards and all kinds of accolades coming from these film festivals. So just as another plug to say,
yeah.
if you have an opportunity to go see Honeyjoon, especially in a theater, Jen and I weren't able to watch this in a theater, and we had a great time just like by ourselves. But if you're able to go see this in the theater, if you're able to attend a screening at a film festival, like take advantage of that. This is one
Mm-hmm.
that will definitely reward that like communal experience of
Yeah.
watching this with other people and kind of feeding off of their energy, because it's actually a really funny movie, and so I can only imagine how fun it would be to watch this in a theater.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. If it's playing at a film festival near you right now, go watch it, go support it. Write the letterboxd reviews, post about it. It really helps this film continue to gain that momentum and the traction, and for the powers that be seeing the reception. So go watch Honeydew. This is our way, honestly, to just get Honeydew out there and rave about it because it is so worthy of it. And I can't wait to see this get picked up by some distribution deals. I get to watch this in a theater one day very soon. So, um, okay, well, let's do our one sentence summaries for Honeydew and dive fully into this film. So, Sarah, what is your one sentence summary for Honeydew?
Mine is grief, surfing, and mother-daughter bonding.
Yeah, yeah, all of the above, all of the
Mhm.
above. My one sentence summary is when asking both the questions, isn't it so hard to be alive? And can't we just enjoy being alive? Do it in paradise.
Honestly, though, like, is there a better place to be asking those questions? I don't
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. I also had a second thought when I was thinking about my one sentence summary. In Lilo Stitch, the main song, the theme
Mm.
song, I was thinking
Hmm.
about it's an Azorian roller coaster ride.
My
Which is a reference
other
to something
like
that Lillian talked a lot about in her
yes,
interview. The roller
my
coaster
other
ride of
like
this film.
music themed
Okay,
potential
I'm
one
ready.
sentence summary was it's your vacation, you can cry if you want to.
Nice. I love that one. So good. So good. Okay, well, let's dive in. There's so much to talk about with this film. I'm curious, yeah, just to kind of just open up the conversation. What's something that you found yourself in the days after watching Honey June continuing to come back to as you think about this film?
I think for me, what impresses me, I mean, there's so much about Honeydew that's great, but what really impresses me is its ability to handle so many varied emotions all at the
Mhm.
same time, but it doesn't feel muddled. I feel like sometimes in films there's these like tonal or emotional shifts, and it either ends up feeling really like muddled and messy and kind of makes you disconnect from the film, or it's this like tonal whiplash that also takes you out of the film. And I feel like Honey June really capitalizes on the mixing of emotions, so that when you're going from this really humorous moment to this really heartfelt moment, or you're going from joy to grief, there's usually like a transition between them,
Mm.
or the
Yeah.
two are mixed together. There is some tonal whiplash throughout, but it always feels intentional. And so I love the like emotional awareness of this film, to understand where we as the audience are, and making sure that we can like receive this next emotional beat that we're going into. Mixing emotions is really like hard to do, I feel like, and Honeyjoon does it very, very effectively, and also really efficiently too. You're going back and forth between emotions probably pretty quickly, like quicker than I feel like a lot of films do, but it doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels very right and natural and in tune with these characters and where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like this incredible kaleidoscope and collage of many different emotions all existing at the same time, which I think is also really hard to depict, but is so deeply human and true to life. And I find we're really bad at holding space for all of them to exist at the same time as well. They're we as humans need to simplify and need to understand and need to like tease out the one emotion that we feel, and it feels like that one emotion has to be the only thing we can feel. And Honeyjoon invites us into the chaos of all of it swirling at the same time. And so and oftentimes there isn't resolution to emotions that can be easy or understood, but life is happening, so you kind of just have to keep going. And one of the things I remember feeling so distinctly in this film that I loved is how much Lillian, it allows an emotion to hang in the air, and then she cuts away. And there isn't an easy simple catharsis or a resolution to the emotions of that scene. We just cut and move to the next scene. So a character might be expressing something really hard, or crying or feeling something so deeply, and then it's this like almost jarring cut to, and then they're on their journey to go see the next beautiful thing. And I loved that. I love that because that's how my life feels sometimes. I'm like sobbing, and then I just got to join a work meeting, and it's like just wiping away all the tears and just have to be on again. And there isn't time always to process emotions as they are happening, and it will build on top of each other and sometimes get released in a big moment, or sometimes not quite yet fully ripe for that. So I loved the editing and how that contributes to what you were talking about, which is the tonal whiplash, the existing of many emotions at once, very quickly and efficiently, but almost in a jarring way too, because sometimes life's like that. There aren't easy conclusions before we move to the next thing, and they all are existing at the same time.
Yeah, which just like you said, it feels so true to life. And I think that helps these characters feel so real and three-dimensional.
Yeah.
I both June and Leela, and even the tour guide that they encounter, they feel,
Wow. Yeah.
yes, they feel like fully realized people. And I think it's because we're meeting them, especially the two women, in this place
Mm,
of grief and joy and loss, and all of these complex emotions that we all experience too. So the fact that we're watching them and we're experiencing this with them, of them trying to process or not process everything that's happened,
mm,
I think helps make them feel even more real. And I think that also helps make that tonal whiplash feel natural, instead
mhm.
of this like artificially created thing that makes me uncomfortable. It's like, oh no, these people are going through this very real thing, and we're just meeting them in these little vignettes as they're walking through this really gorgeous setting, dealing with all of these complex emotions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And their readiness and willingness to face or talk about the grief and the hard things are often disconnected from each other, and they miss each other when there's moments where the mother wants to talk about it. June's not ready yet, and she needs time, and that's her journey of processing the grief. And I really love that we get to see the spectrum of how all of those are very real human reactions to loss and figuring out what to do with yourself after loss and when you're ready to face it. There's some people in the world that want to feel it deeply, they want to feel it together. And there's some that are looking to find joy in other places, and maybe that's part of their coping mechanism until they can face it, and there will be a time when they are ready, but until then they will feel pressured to have to face it yet. And I felt so seen in having that spectrum shown. I think I tend to be a little bit more like June, where I'm like, I don't want to face this hard thing yet until I'm ready. But I have people in my life that are a lot more like Leela, and to understand yourself and then to understand others by seeing the spectrum displayed, I think was really helpful and valuable. There isn't one way to process loss or grief, and both of them are so authentically showing up in their ways of processing it. And you probably know people that fall in different buckets and categories and everything along the spectrum, even more of the whiplash of like wanting to feel it and then not. And everyone experiences those emotions so differently. And I loved how we get to see two very different ways, and both of them are real, both of them are valid.
I also love the way that the the cinematography, but also like the use of spaces and kind of like the blocking
Yeah.
will reinforce that like disconnect as well. So
Mm-hmm.
even early in the film, when we first meet these two characters, there's a moment where June is outside and she's standing in front of like the sliding glass door, and her mom
Yeah.
is inside the room, like laying on the bed. And you can just see, like, even though they're talking to one another through the open door, they're so separate, like in position, in place. They're on different sides of the frame, and I loved little details like that all throughout the film, where you can see physically there is a distance, or the way that they're in the frame, you can see that there is that clash happening that we can feel when they're talking. I feel like clash is too hard of a word, but there's that
Mm-hmm.
disconnect, that we know emotionally, but then we also see that paired visually. And so I
Mm-hmm.
loved all of those little creative moments where where it's a visual representation of what we already feel from these characters.
Yes, yes. I have a shot to bring to the table that I absolutely adore that does that. And it's like, I think very, very early, a couple minutes into the film. And actually, that was a shot I remember watching the first time for Honeyjoon, feeling, oh, this is going to be good. Like, I trust this creator, this artist, because that was, it said so much in so little time. But it's the shot where they are traveling. It's a series of montages. I think it's either right before or right after they're taking the photo together, but they're exploring this church and they're going up the stairs. That shot is genius because, first of all, June is a few steps ahead from her mother. And so they're not walking together, they're not chatting along the way, they're separated. But also, what's interesting about the stairs up to that church is that there's two flights that go to the right and to the left, and they meet in the middle in a landing area. And then there's two flights that go to the left and the right, and they walk on different sides. And so not only are they not walking together, but they're also walking in separate directions before they meet each other again, and separate directions before they meet each other again. And it feels like that is the representation of this film, in physical spaces. They're missing each other, they move away from each other, but they kind of try and find each other again, and then they miss each other again. And that constant ebb and flow of the relationship of kind of that push pull. They pull away from each other, but they can't help but try with each other again. And I think that was a fascinating, just visual representation of the emotional space. And this team does an incredible job of doing that time and time again. The changing of space between in the car between her mother and her, as Joao is leading them to beautiful things. But it makes for some really comedic bits, but also shows the changes in bonding that's happening between uh, June and Joao, and then her mother and Joao, and then how that they feel with about each other. So yeah, the efficient use of physical space and emotional space is so good. So good.
Yeah, and I love that throughout the film too, we get to spend time with both June and Leela by themselves too.
Mm, yeah.
There's obviously a lot of time with them together or like quote unquote together, like the
Mm,
stairs.
yeah.
That's a great example. But we also get to see them having alone time and seeing how they react when they're alone and then when they're together. And I love that contrast that we also see because sometimes, you're feeling all of the emotions and you need to go process through them by yourself.
Yeah.
And we see those little moments. We see how they both act when they don't have almost this like reminder of the grief
Yeah.
with them, so I thought that those were also really really valuable in getting to know these two characters and getting to kind of see how they tick, like what makes them tick when they're just
Mm,
by themselves, when they have some alone time, what are they going to do? And so I thought that those were really valuable and really strategically timed as well.
mm. Yeah, yeah. And the ways that they feel a little bit more free to express those things when they are not together. They're both holding their breath whenever they're together because they know that there's so much sensitivity and there's so much tension that they're trying to navigate. One of the things that I thought was so accurately put to the big screen that Lily and her team have done is just the complicated, tense dynamics between mothers and daughters sometimes. And both are sometimes trying, both are being passive aggressive sometimes, and it's so brimming beneath the surface in the tension or the frustration, and it feels like it might explode at any moment, but it hasn't yet, and we're all just grateful that we're all holding it together. So I thought, like, for example, the mother constantly putting the jacket on her, the way that June takes it personally when the mother is giving her the napkin when she's eating the popsicle. Like, I know that feeling of like, what are you trying to say? Like, I'm just trying to eat the popsicle. It feels like every gesture is like coated with all this other intention. And you're like, maybe, but maybe not, and just how much that tension can build too. And there's the eye rolls and the glares that go back and forth. But um, there's still so much like care and love there, but it's complicated too, like there's a feeling of freedom that June is wanting to explore that she feels like she can't yet, and her mother's trying to do her best to protect her daughter, but it does come and it's misinterpreted the wrong way. And so it just, you can really empathize with both sides. I think this is like a great film for both mothers and daughters, parents and children to watch, of seeing how much your parent is trying and also your child just wants to explore and be free and have the freedom to do that. And sometimes those two things are hard to coexist at the same time. And I thought that that was such an she this film empathizes with both sides so deeply and understands both sides so deeply. And I thought that was really neat. No one is the villain. No one is the hero. They're both just trying their best.
Which is just so beautiful to see.
Yeah.
We are all just trying. Like
Yeah.
this is such a human film. And
Hmm.
yeah, you can't help but empathize and want to root for both of these characters.
Yeah.
They just they to me they don't feel like characters, they feel like real people that are experiencing
Hmm.
this. And so I just the fact that this feels like two real people who are just going on this trip together and we're just kind of along for the ride, I think is just another testament to the writing and how intentional it is to create that empathy and just making sure that these two are both so well rounded that they don't feel like an archetype or a
Hmm.
caricature. they
Hmm.
they feel real.
Yeah, yeah. And it's because they do so many little things that we as humans do, and we can see so much of ourselves in them. One of the things that we got to talk about, which I really adored in this film, was the use of different aspect ratios. And I don't want to give too much away because it's fun to discover, but I think there's some camera work and very creative, out of the box ways of thinking about how to film and allow us as the viewers to immerse into the worlds of these characters, and really understanding their POV. And it made for some really funny moments with some of the changes and how we go from a wider screen to a more narrow screen to understand the worlds of these characters. So those moments were particularly so funny, so human, and like very small details in the way that just the quirks of how we are as humans, and how we are when we have a crush, how we are when we're trying to not be known and found out when we have a crush. All those little things that we do are so funny.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that surprised me about this film is that it is really funny. Like, I know we've talked
Yeah,
about grief for the past 20 minutes, but this film is really funny, and
yeah,
it's for me, it's funniest in those little moments, when
yeah.
like June is giving a look to her mom, or, her mom is reacting to something silly that she did, or, the way that it's edited together is so funny sometimes. Some of the cinematography is also creates for some comedic moments. So I think that is something important about this film, is that it isn't just this like weighty grief, we're gonna talk about emotions, it's doing that, and you feel the grief, you feel the loss, you feel the disconnect, you feel all of that, and you feel the
Mhm.
joy, and you see the comedic moments, and you're having a laugh with June because she's funny. And so this
Yeah.
film really balances those two really, really well. This, I feel like, is one of those unique films that isn't just one thing, but
Mm.
it can find its home in like multiple genres. It's so layered and varied, and there's so much here. But the comedic bits are, man, that is why I wish we were able to see this in a theater, to
Yeah.
experience all of those comedic bits with everybody else. I found this really funny just sitting on my couch at home, but man, to see this in a theater would be just an utter blast.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I think that'll be so fun, and also just so fun to see what things. I always love in theaters seeing what different little things people laugh at that others don't laugh at, and you get the like dude in the third row that's like laughing at all of the things that you're like, oh, okay, yes. But I think that that is part of the communal human experience of experiencing this movie too. Is like getting to discover and experience the shared joy and the shared tears in all of the moments of this film would be an incredible treat. So we're we're putting it out there. It's going to happen, and can't wait for when that moment comes. One of the very intentional choices that I think adds so much depth and layers to this film is the way that Leela is processing and just talking and sharing about the women life freedom movement. So I know this is the thing that you also really loved in this film. I think it adds what is already an incredibly complex and layered story, but I think that adds so much more to what this film represents as well, beyond just it being a family story. I think it actually has a lot to say about womanhood and femininity and the ways that women have been treated and how we take ownership of our bodies and our stories in a really powerful way that I think this film kind of elevates and transcends to be something much more than just a smaller story about one family. It's actually a representation for so many women. And that was so powerful to me. So I'm curious your thoughts about the way that the woman life freedom movement themes are woven into this film.
Yeah, I was really fascinated by that piece of it, and I think for me that really helps um, kind of unlock a lot of the themes in this film. Like you said, about what is it like to be a woman, what does it look like to be free, what does that mean for us, and then that how does that look different from context to context too, and how are we all like processing through that? How are we understanding one another too, as
Mm.
we are trying to figure out what that looks like in our lives and what it looks like to be a woman living today. Um, but I think upon rewatch, the thing that really stood out to me this time that kind of I feel like reinforces that is the film continually returns to the painting The Birth of Venus.
Yes.
Even the movie poster is kind of an homage to that painting, and you see it a few times throughout. And then throughout the film, you see Jude like checking her angles, in the mirror, or she's like posing for a picture, and she has to like model a certain way. So there's a
Yeah.
lot about what it means to be a woman, how we present ourselves in the world.
Hmm.
And so it's just really fascinating that you have this like really, really famous Italian painting
Yeah.
and, this movement in Iran. And both of them speak to this theme about what does it mean to be a woman? How do we show up in the world? How do
Hmm.
we live as women in 2025?
Yeah.
And so I just found that so interesting that these two things that you normally wouldn't put in conversation with one another
Hmm.
both exist in this film to reinforce so many of the themes that are explored through both Leela and June. So just
Hmm.
again, the intentionality of this film, of Lillian and the entire team, to be able to pull these threads together in a way that makes a lot of sense and builds upon each other and doesn't feel
Hmm.
out of place, doesn't feel I don't know, off-putting, but it all makes sense and it all supports every other part of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is very interesting about this film is that the catharsis, the birth um, of June getting to be fully free in her whole female body is often for the first half of the film limited by not just not only which has traditionally been depicted I think the male gaze, but it's also by the women that have come from cultures and backgrounds and traditions that are looking to put the scarf on her and asking her to cover up, and I think that's a fascinating nuance in that what June is breaking free from and seeking to find full freedom in is not just from the male gaze, but it's also of traditions and societal expectations of women in general. And we all are a part of contributing to that, and we all are a part of setting ourselves free from those expectations as well. So I think that was a really nuanced detail is that we actually see for the most part it's not for the for the first act that like men are looking at her in that way and then she is choosing to break free. It's actually the women in her life that are older, that have come from their own family backgrounds, that have received these expectations, that are passing them to the next generation. But this generation saying, actually, no, we're going to do something different. We believe and we see for ourselves what this represents for us. It's not the same as it always has been. And it can be groundbreaking. It can be different. And I think the comparison to the birth of Venus referenced in the movie poster and throughout the film too is that that painting historically was groundbreaking. It was jarring at the time because there had never been a painting like that with a full nude female painted to be placed as beauty, as art in a home like that before. And so kind of the revolutionary historical context of that painting and that painting being chosen to be the references for this film all feel very intentional and very symbolic as well of the way that June is being that painting for what that painting was historically at that time. The women life freedom movement is breaking the boundaries of what has always been societally expected from women in that culture, and then for June in her own life and her own story, breaking free from those. So I thought all of those themes, like you're mentioning, they triangulate together, they feed into each other, they add layers and depths to the other storylines all at once. And Honeyjoon as a film is able to hold all of that together and invite you into it and to find and discover those connection points, which is really, really thrilling, really exciting.
And I think Honeyjoon is such a great example of the way that like we as audiences connect to stories, because
Mm,
this is a very scoped story. You know, it's about Leela and June, and just their journey together.
mm,
It's, you know, limited time period, limited people. It's very narrow in scope,
yeah,
and we are able to enter into that and connect with that. And then by doing so, then it opens us up to all of these other
yeah,
themes that are able to be explored. And so I love the restraint that Honeyjoon has in order to get us to be able to experience not only the beauty and the emotions and the difficulties of June and Layla's story, but then to open
hmm,
us up to all of these other really interesting themes that we're able to unpack. But I think if this had been a larger story and like we're following more characters, or, you know, it takes place over a longer period of time, then we wouldn't have as much ability to like dive into all of those other things.
mm,
So I think the restraint in this film and keeping, you know, the cast so small, and the time period so short, I think really helps us to be able to truly engage with all of the meaty themes and ideas that are in this film.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It is a specific story, and yet that allows us to connect to it more fully. And I also just really love that those references are so elegantly and delicately done. We're not being hit over the head with them. It's so perfectly curated and perfectly designed at just the right moment to prompt our thoughts, and then we're on to the next moment, and we can kind of sit with it and come back with a lot of it later. Actually, I found like during the film I was almost just sucked into like experiencing this world with them, and so many of those layers start to like blossom and fall open more actually after the film ended. And so I thought that was neat too, the way that this film is like almost so like intoxicating while you're in it, but afterwards you're like, wow, there's so much happening and so much there to mull on and to still sink our teeth into. Sometimes I find that some films do the opposite, like it's so enthralling in the moment, and then afterwards you never think about it again. You're like, that was great, that was fun. This isn't like that. This actually feels like a a journey, an exciting adventure when you're in it. And then afterwards, you're like, oh no, oh yes, and that part. And then this thing connects to the other moment. And there's a lot to sink your teeth into. So kind of blossoms and opens up even further if you let your thoughts wander after the film as well.
Absolutely. And I think the other piece of this is Honey June is such an immersive film.
Mm,
It's such like a feast for the senses. And I mean, obviously it's shot in the Azores. So like it's absolutely gorgeous.
yeah.
But the film really capitalizes on that. And knowing when to really like lean into the beauty, and we get to do some like sightseeing and stuff throughout, but you feel like you're there with them as they
Hmm.
are going through all of these things. And so just credit to the cinematography and the editing to make us really feel immersed in this world. We are
Mm.
we are in the car with them as they are traveling to their
Mm.
next destination. We're in the hotel room with them when they're doing their thing. So I think that also helps it feel so real and help these characters feel real, is that
Yeah.
it is so immersive. You feel like you are there with them on this journey, because of how this is shot and edited together.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's such a specific part of, I think, how this film's overarching thesis ends. It actually, like, I think for the first half of the film, it just feels like, oh, this makes sense because they're going on this journey, and we know the context of they're doing the mother daughter trip thing, but by the end of the film, that actually plays a huge role in how they choose to live, and that thesis around life as resistance, as legacy, and honoring their father's legacy, pleasure, joy as resistance, that weaves into the themes with the women life freedom movement as well. I think all of that is so interconnected, and gosh, being in a place like that, doesn't it beg you to just live fully, compared to if they're having the same journey, the same emotional narrative, but maybe at home. And then I also think there's something around being away from your home, your own context, your own worlds, that also like invites you into more emotional vulnerability, more exploration, more awareness of yourself, that maybe you it's not as easy to find, or doesn't beg for you to come along and let those things a little bit more free when you're back home in your normal routines. And so I think them going away and having this connection point, these tension points, but also coming back and finding themselves, is often true of being outside of your normal context that you live in and are so steeped in.
Yeah, unburdened by like the laundry and,
Yeah.
cooking
Yeah.
dinner and all of the normal things.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we go on vacation, right? Is to like experience
Hmm.
this whole thing, to kind of be like vacation us, to be unbridled and just be able to be free and explore and do all of the things. And sometimes that involves feeling the big feelings
Yeah.
because we haven't had time in our busy lives to actually take stock of what that actually looks like.
And then there's also people you meet along the way. So I think we have to talk about Joao. He's kind of the third part of this trio, honestly. And I think he obviously the story is so centered on the emotional arc and journey of June and Leela, but I actually think Joao has already been on that arc, and that's why he's able to be almost this like very tactical tour guide for them, but also this emotional tour guide for them as well, to navigating what he's had time to, and almost has already begun the process of with his grandmother, and having to hold grief and life and joy and all at the same time, and I love the ways that he is such a great listener throughout the film. He's almost this quiet, safe place for them both to land. Um, I love the scene where they're both standing in the window looking out into the yard, and they, one by one, June comes over first and kind of pours her heart out, and then Layla comes over and pours her heart out, and Joel's just this like safe place for both these women to like be heard finally and open up. But I also love the ways that he challenges them in these really soft and tender ways, like the conversation that Joao has with June in the garden. Um, he sees June's mother more clearly than she does, and he kind of challenges her view of what June, you were leaning into this, but your mother's leaning into this other thing that's just as valuable and beautiful. And I don't come across it often. And I love it. And you see June be like, really? You know? It's a funny, actually, just like growing up experience of seeing other people in the world find your parents cool when you thought they were really not cool. So there's that really funny aspect to it that's so relatable, but also Joelle opens their minds to each other in ways that I think are really significant, and maybe accelerates their reconciliation and them really finding each other by the end of the movie.
The other aspect that I really love about him is that he's just so full of wisdom. Like, I feel like every time he opens his mouth, it's just like banger after banger. I'm like, okay, I need to like transcribe this whole movie just for his quotes. There's so much wisdom that he's just constantly pouring out,
Yeah.
and he's a total surfer bro. And I love that combination because, I feel like a lot of times in films, the surfer dude is there for like comedic relief, or he's like not to be taken seriously because like, oh, he's just a surfer
Mhm.
dude. Um, and so the fact that he has both of these things, and in fact, some of his most like poignant wisdom is related to surfing. And so he's taking this thing that he is passionate about, and he's combining it with his life experience to then share encouragement and wisdom with these two
Yeah.
women who are walking through this really difficult thing. And so there's so much wisdom in him. There's so much like tenderness and care in this
Mhm.
character. So he's just a really
Mhm.
wonderful support to the journey that both Leela and June are going on, and he never overshadows them. But he's
Yeah.
just a really wonderful. I mean, he literally is a great guide, both in like the
Yeah.
storytelling sense of the word and in the tour guide sense of the word. And so, just what a brilliantly written character to really balance out these this because it really is like a trio as the principal cast.
He is the Gandalf to their journey, to their hero's journey. He is the Obi-Wan Kenobi for their journey. You know, like he is the one that is like, and I think it's most effective because he's been there. He knows, he's understood. He's still there. He's still in the midst of it. The long goodbyes, you know, and so he can relate. He can empathize, but also you can tell that he's done a lot of that heart work and reflection and like really discovering himself and what is it like to live that he's really like sunk his teeth into and is able and then therefore is able to give these like banger one liners that we need to all get on mugs and like cheers to together. Riding the waves of life, you know. Yeah. Okay, other big details or small details that Honeydew makes that we wanted to touch on before we wrap.
I do want to shout out one shot that I really loved. I both times I've watched this, I was taken aback by this shot, which is
Yeah.
wild because it's so like mundane and normal. I don't know why I love it so much, but I love it. So I want to talk about it. But it's actually when they go to Zhao's grandmother's house,
Hmm.
and when he is standing alone in the doorway looking out at the backyard, and there's just a still shot of just him watching, and he's perfectly framed in the middle of the doorway. You see the pink of the house kind of surrounding
Yes.
him, contrasted with his like bright blue shirt, and you just see such like serenity and peace on his
Mm.
face. And I loved the stillness of that shot. I love how long we linger there, just spending this time with him for just a moment as he's just like taking a breath, taking it in. I don't know, there's such tenderness in that one shot, and it just, man, it got me both times. I was like, this is it. I love this. I don't know why I love this, but I love this. Because it's just a dude in a doorway, but man, it's such a powerful shot. I loved it.
Oh, I feel like dude in a doorway. And you see like a whole. There's through cinema. There's probably tons of those, but this one
This
stuck
one,
out to you.
this
Yeah.
one got me. I loved it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, One of the things that I love about this film is its pacing of tones and which ones it's using how much as the film is progressing. So we talked about how this film is really funny, and I think it was so smart for the film to it leans into that humor more heavily and in different ways as the film begins and as we are seeing the characters are becoming more vulnerable, opening themselves up so much more. There are those moments of humor and levity, but they're different in tone, and I think that was really smart and wise. Like we're not getting the same flavor of humor as like in the opening scene where they're at the pool. It's a really funny moment, but we don't have that flavor. It's a different flavor that we get as the film progresses, and I think that was just so sensitive. And like we mentioned, this film is so self-aware and so sensitive to those dynamics and knowing what we need as a viewer and how that tonal whiplash is always there, but it looks constantly so different based on the scenes and emotions that are happening in the characters and how to pair them in a way that is interesting and funny, but also not too much in any given moment. So I'm quite impressed because that could have been kind of chaotic. That could have been a train wreck. And it could have felt, like you mentioned at the beginning of our episode, muddled, but it's so specifically designed and intentional, that it is sensitive and it works. And I think that's the type of intuition from a creator and a director that you can't teach. It's there or it's not there, and it comes from deeply understanding human beings that Leanne has, that she can actually bring that to life and tune everything at just the right levels that we need to fully give ourselves over to the film instead of being kind of put off by it. And that sense, emotional sensitivity, I think, shines so brightly in Honeyjoon, and Lillian nails it. So I wanted to give a shout out for that, because as I think about this film more, I'm like, oh, that could have all been really kind of really strangely done. And it is so emotionally sensitive and so good in this movie.
And I think it's also an understanding of comedy too,
Yeah.
like you can't just have like one note in comedy. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, you can do that, but it's the law of diminishing
It's,
returns. And so
yeah.
this film understands that different people respond to humor differently. And so there
Yep.
really is all of these different variations of humor that will help people connect and be ushered into this story, because there's so many different ways that you can connect with it. You can connect with the humor, you can connect with the grief, you can connect with the beauty. Like there's so much to really like sink your
Yeah.
teeth into. And I think those variations in humor are really helpful in making this more palatable and more accessible to more people, because you don't have to just find one thing funny, but there's so much throughout that you can have a chuckle at, because
Hmm.
it's yeah it's all over the comedic spectrum that you see in this film.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, which is able to allow everyone to relate, but also I think it is true to how like life is funny in all of the ways too. Like it's all ridiculous, it's all kind of chaotic, and we're just trying to exist in the midst of it. So yeah, I think we, as you've heard, we're big fans of Honeyjoon. This film is able to have you laugh with a tear in your eye, make you cry, but then also just want to go out and live fully, live colorfully. Its ability to handle contrast and duality. You'll hear Lillian talk a lot about the yin and the yang, and how that was so intentionally and thoughtfully created as part of this story. And then I think just hearing just the way that this film is actually birthed from a very personal place, for Lillian, and how she brings all of her heart to this film, you will deeply, deeply feel. So we cannot rave about Honeydew enough. We're excited, honestly, to see what Lillian does next. But in the meantime, honestly, go, if you see Honeydew at your local film festivals, go support it, go watch it, and experience this story, and tell us what y'all really resonated with as well. So this was our review discussion of Honeydew. Go find it in your film festivals. Go watch it when it inevitably, hopefully, will pick up a distribution deal. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Movies and Us. Our name sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories, so everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your excitement to potentially see Honeyjoon, or if you got a chance to watch it already. Oh my gosh, please reach out to us. Let us know. We need to talk about this movie with you. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at moviesnustpod, or email us at moviesnustpod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on Movies and Us and our other podcast, TV and Us. We will be back in a couple of days, as Sarah mentioned earlier, with that interview with Lillian T. Morell, the writer and director of Honeyjoon. So, my gosh, we are buzzing for y'all to hear that. We can't wait. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again with y'all very soon.